Hello, everyone. Sorry, I'm a little bit late tonight. Honestly, I'm over here giggling and laughing because of a couple of things. We're in a hotel. We're in a new room, as you can tell. I'll explain why in just a second. But there was a crying baby next door, and then there was something else happening in the hallway, and we kept wanting to start, and we thought, "Where are we now?" So hopefully this goes okay. And then there was a wireless issue. So if that doesn't introduce what could or could not happen for tonight's live show, um, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. And speaking of this, look at this is from my note taking today. We were also laughing about that. I've got ink, still taking notes, doing some sketches. But for those that are new to our nightly live shows during trials, we do an entire show going over exactly what happened in court with the trials that we cover. And I am here in Colorado attending daily the Craig or the James Craig trial. And today, actually, funny enough, almost started without us. And that might sound familiar because that's sort of how I started yesterday's live stream about the trial, but for different reasons. We were actually feeling pretty confident this morning. Unlike yesterday, we actually got up early. We had everything under control, but our hotel is the one that had other plans, which I'm going to explain now why I am in a different room. So apparently, when you extend your stay last minute, which is what we did, they sometimes make you switch rooms. Never happened to us before. So instead of a calm morning, caffeinated beverage and moseying to the courthouse, we were scrambling to figure out a solution because when we travel for trials, we don't just have a couple of suitcases. We have an entire podcast set. And it was 7:45. Court starts at 8:30, and all of a sudden we had an entire room to pack in a studio to completely take down. I mean, we bought a table. We go places and we buy tables at Walmart when we arrive in a hotel. So I rushed ahead to court while my producer Grayson handled the moving. She was packing an entire hotel room in record time, including an entire set of podcasting equipment, and she made it at 8:29, just in time. Meanwhile, I was being grilled by the courthouse security over a pair of tweezers in my backpack. I'll call them alleged tweezers because they ran my backpack no less than 5 times, showed me on the screen and emptied the backpack, but there were too many pockets and none of us could find these alleged tweezers. So with a little begging, they let me go ahead and just take the backpack upstairs, hoping that I would not find those tweezers and do something terrible with them. We're still trying to find, again, the tweezers. So anyway, we made it. Once again, slightly sweaty, slightly stressed, but we are now ready to bring you everything that happened in court today. So once we got into the courtroom, everyone settled into their usual spots, except today something had shifted. Angela's oldest daughter, Miriam, who testified yesterday, she sat on the defense side next to her grandparents, James's parents, and other family. The other two Craig children stayed on the prosecution side. And watching them make that choice each day, it's this sort of quiet, gut-wrenching reminder of what they've lost. No, not just their mother, but this sense of family, safety, and stability. This should have never been up for grabs. James Craig, he was back in his pinstripe suit again today with his silver waves slicked back and a scruffy beard that I guess they allow you to have while in jail. The first witness on the stand today was Angel Amarine. And let me tell you about Angel. She showed up actually in a sundress and a messy blonde bun. These days, Angel works in dentistry out of Hilton Head, South Carolina. Hilton Head's beautiful. But back in early 2023, she was a dental assistant at Summerbrook Dental, working for Dr. James Craig for about 6 months. And Angel explained that the week of March 9th, it wasn't exactly normal. She had been out sick with the flu and had missed quite a bit of work. The other girls in the office were covering her shifts. And then toward the end of the week, James reached out and asked if she'd be willing to help out with a dental class that Friday, March 10th. And she said yes, even though she had never met the doctors running the class. Her role that day was pretty simple: sterilize rooms and essentially assist where needed. Nothing out of the ordinary, at least not yet. Because then next, exhibit 182 was admitted into evidence. And these, what was exhibit 182? They were texts between Angel and James prior to that March 10th class. So the first text brought up was James texting Angel to see if the food was open. He had forgotten his laptop at the office, or to see if he needed to get some food in, and he also needed the door unlocked, and he had forgotten his laptop at the office. And this was after Angel had asked how Angela was doing, since she had heard that Angela had been admitted to the hospital, which James actually did not reply to. He just began talking about the class that was being held on the 10th. So then in another message, James confirmed that the dental class was still happening that Friday and let her know that he would not be the one teaching it. Okay. But then on the morning of March 10th, while Angel is still at the office assisting with the class, she got a strange text from James. And it read something like, "Hey, Angela, I'm expecting a priority package this morning, maybe this afternoon, but I think it'll be this morning. Keep the door unlocked. It'll probably be a small box or a padded envelope. Let me know when it comes." End quote. So not long after that, he texted her again asking how everything was going, and she replied that it was going great and that the visiting doctors were very nice. And so again, it all seemed pretty normal, right? Until James texted again, and this time asking if any mail had arrived for her. So Angel was a dental assistant, not the front desk person or the usual package collector. If anything ever got delivered, someone would typically just bring it to the back, but no one else was working that day. So even though the request felt a bit off, it kind of made sense in context. She was the one that was there. So Angel sent another message asking how Angela was doing again. And he tells her she's doing the same, still at the hospital and having a lot of tests run. And then he asks her if she had checked with Katie before asking again if the package had arrived, saying that he could swing by and get it. She texts back saying nothing has arrived and asks him if it was priority and could be put in the mailbox. So then if it was priority, it would always be brought up to the office. But if there was any chance it had been put in the mailbox, she didn't have a key, thus wouldn't be able to access that if it was put in there. So James said he wasn't sure, but doubted it would be regular mail. But at this point, he hadn't been provided the tracking number. And so before she left for the day, she asked him if he wanted her to keep the back door of the office unlocked for him, to which he told her yes, he would be going to the office in the morning because this package was coming. So the day after the dental class, March 11th, James sent out a message in a group chat asking if anyone was nearby and could come and open the office door. So I guess it had been locked again. Nobody responded except for Angel. She offered her key again. She lived close by, and James came to pick the key up in person. But again, he never said what the package was. No details, no explanation. And now it was time, though, for the defense to cross-examine. The defense immediately zeroed in on those text messages. Angel confirmed that initially James had asked for her key to retrieve his laptop and then later for the package. And the defense argued this wasn't a secretive situation. James never told Angel not to open the package. He never told her to keep quiet. All the defense sort of drilled home was that James pretty much said, "Let me know when this package arrives." And they actually made a good point. There was nothing secretive about this. James didn't tell her not to tell anyone. James didn't say it was this private, secret package no one could know about. So on redirect, though, prosecutors wasted no time cutting through the fog that the defense sort of created. They asked, "Did James ever tell you the package contained potassium cyanide?" No. Did you ever handle potassium cyanide during the dental class? No. Would that ever be something used in a class like that? Absolutely not. And did you at any point know what was inside the package James was so eager to get? No. So again, what the prosecution is drilling home is maybe James didn't say it was a secret, but he also didn't say what it really was. Well, the next witness on the stand was Molly Harris, walking into the courtroom, honestly, like a scene out of a crime drama. Detective Molly Harris made an impression before she even opened her mouth. Dressed in a crisp white pantsuit, her black holster and badge at her waist, she was every bit the image of authority and precision. Between her and Bobby Olson, who's already testified, these women are not just detectives. They, in my opinion, are symbols of the relentless pursuit of justice for Angela Craig. Detective Harris had more than a decade of law enforcement under her belt and currently serves in Aurora PD's Major Crimes Unit. And in 2023, she played a direct role in the investigation into Dr. James Craig. While on the stand, Harris was walked through a series of digital exhibits tied to the infamous Jim and Waffles Gmail account. She confirmed the account belonged to James Craig, matching not only his email activity, but also his birth date. And his birthday, so he put in his real birthday and his real name in this Gmail account, February 11th, 1978. And he also put in his phone number. So one of the most critical pieces of evidence is a printout of Google Voice call logs tied to that Gmail account showing interactions between James and 3 other individuals. Harris also reviewed text messages from that same account dated February 28th, March 9th, and March 13th that prosecutors allege show a timeline of planning and concealment. On the stand, Detective Molly Harris made it clear she wasn't just part of the James Craig investigation, she was deep in this investigation. She testified that she personally combed through the records from the data request, scrutinizing every call, every message tied to James Craig's Jim and Waffles Gmail account, and then came and shipped via USPS on February 28th, just weeks before Angela's final hospitalization. But Harris didn't just follow the digital trail. She was there, boots on the ground, during the search of Summerbrook Dental, specifically Exam Room 9, where investigators seized a Dell computer. And from that machine, they pulled the hard drive and got to work. Their lab, as Harris described it, is actually a designated workspace with a big TV in the conference room. Old school, but effective. They hooked up the hard drive and started a manual search of this hard drive, click by click, file by file. They looked for anything that could help them understand what James Craig had been planning. Their digital forensics expert, David Lee, he was off duty. So he worked Monday through Thursday. And of course, he just happened to be on vacation. So with their guy out, they escalated to the Secret Service for a forensic extraction. But the agency said it would be 2 weeks before they could even touch it. This was not going to work. James Craig was still out in the community, still walking free. The clock was ticking. And law enforcement could not afford to wait. So Harris and her team rolled up their sleeves and did the hard work themselves. And as Detective Molly Harris continued her testimony, she walked the court through the moment investigators began their manual dive into the seized hard drive from James Craig's dental office. They connected it to a large TV screen in their conference room and pulled up the inbox for, again, that now infamous Jim and Waffles Gmail account. What they saw as they scrolled through, honestly, was chilling to them. There were emails exchanged between James Craig and a woman named Karen Kane, a name that comes up again and again, and messages from 2 science suppliers, ADUQ Bioscience and Midland Scientific. One email even contained a purchase invoice from ADUQ, and before prosecutors could dig deeper, the defense objected hard. They argued that any information pulled from that email, including the date, the sender, or even the delivery address, would be hearsay unless Detective Harris could prove she had direct personal knowledge of the contents. And that triggered a short voir dire, basically a mini cross-exam, where Harris clarified something crucial because Just because something appears in the inbox or browser history, it doesn't automatically prove who searched it or what exactly they saw, but it's a digital breadcrumb, right? And so the state was following the trail. So we went back on direct. The prosecution handed Harris a set of documents tied to the arsenic purchase from Amazon, and these included the listing description, a confirmation email, payment receipt, order detail, and delivery information. In short, a digital paper trail, prosecutors allege, shows James Craig wasn't just dabbling in toxic curiosity, he was planning something. Something. Definitely something. Eventually, Aurora PD's forensic analyst, David Lee, was finally able to extract the locked data from James Craig's seized devices. And once the data was in hand, it landed on the desk again of Detective Molly Harris. And you just saw that sketch there of Detective Molly Harris. She testified that while she couldn't say who physically typed the searches, she didn't witness them in real time. All of the information was extracted, though, directly from the computer in exam room 9. We know who is in exam room 9. Who was in exam room 9? Dr. James Craig. And then on the courtroom screen, a new exhibit, disturbing Google searches from February 27th, 2023. Here are a few of them. Are you guys ready? Let me take a drink. Let's do this. So, first Google search. Is there such a thing as an undetectable poison? Second one, how to make poison from oleander. Is arsenic detectable? How many grams of pure arsenic will kill a human? How to make murder look like a heart attack. And then on February 28th, a dosage of tetrahydrozoline, that's Visine eye drops. A dosage of tetrahydrozoline that is fatal. And by March 3rd, just a direct search for Visine. And on March 6th, tetrahydrozoline poisoning. Timeline. So each search, in my opinion, felt more specific, more targeted than the last. And prosecutors, though, they did not stop there. They also asked Harris about Angela Craig's iPhone, because if this was self-harm, which is what the defense is saying, I mean, this is a very twisty self-harm, maybe accidental self-harm, a game of chicken. I don't know what they're saying, but let's say Angela Craig had a self-harm issue. Or if Angela had been looking up anything about self-harm, it would show, right, in her Google searches. So Harris was clear there was nothing. No searches indicating depression, no signs Angela was researching anything remotely close to self-harm. The digital evidence was silent completely on that front. If there was any doubt about Angela Craig's state of mind in her final days, her search history tells the story. On March 6th, this is what she typed. Are you ready? Pre-workout supplement made me dizzy and eyes are blurry an hour later. Another one, side effects of high blood pressure. And then what followed, honestly, was a heartbreaking scroll of confusion and desperation. Almost a digital diary of a woman trying to figure out why her body was betraying her. Here we go. Sudden onset of heaviness, lethargy, and chills, dizziness, slow focus, tired, head pressure, hearing distortion, Meniere's disease, cold lips, body shaking, strange shaking in sides, mini seizures, body shakes, and lips go cold. It's honestly so sad to listen to these. On March 7th, she shifted to, can the flu cause vertigo? How to treat vertigo from a cold, urgent care, Centura Health patient portal. Is A1C checked through urine? Signs of type 1 diabetes. Is there an app for monitoring vital stats I can share with a loved one? Low blood pressure and diabetes. And on March 11th, that same search came up again. Low blood pressure and diabetes. By March 13th, her symptoms, they had not gone away. In fact, they were getting worse. Internal shivers, the cause. Another one, fall asleep deep, snore, internal tremors, obstructive sleep apnea, internal medicine doctors, Aurora. 2 days before her final collapse, this is her Google search, emergency room at Colfax 226. Honestly, it's a gut punch to see these searches. It's a woman Googling everything from ENT specialists to emergency rooms, trying to name what was happening to her, trying to understand why her body was trembling, why her vision was blurry, and why her lips were cold. Angela wasn't spiraling into despair, clearly. It was actually the opposite. She was fighting. She was trying to live. And through it all, she kept searching because deep down she knew something was wrong and no one had put the pieces together. Right before the next exhibit could be shown, the court broke for lunch. But let me tell you, Detective Harris's testimony, it honestly had been crawling along. Like, I'm glad you guys weren't there and we can just break it down for you, because there had been constant objections, drawn out sidebars, and even moments where the defense again jumped into voir dire right in the middle of her testimony. You'd think that most of these exhibit issues would have been ironed out before court started. And get this, when the jury was dismissed for lunch, defense attorney Lisa Moses, she pointed out that one of the jurors looked like he was dozing off during Harris's testimony. And honestly, with all of the long sidebar pauses, it's hard to blame this juror. We probably listened to more white noise than testimony. So after lunch, the court planned to check in and see if this juror might need to be replaced with an alternate if he can't stay alert. It felt a bit much to me, if you want my opinion. I've never sat through a trial where at some point one juror might be dozing a bit. And it's Friday afternoon and all we're listening to is white noise. Anyway, after the break, Detective Harris confirmed that Exhibit 46 contained text between Angela. And just so you know, Angela's name in the text was saved in the phone as Mom. And James, who was saved in the phone as the boy. So they kept saying, text from Mom, and then the boy responds. But we're going to switch it. This is between James and Angela. And the texts, they indicate a lot of tension, suspicion, emotion, and an unraveling of their marriage in the months before Angela's death. So in December of 2022, it seems as though Angela learned about an affair that James had or was having. She asked things in text like, was she worth it? And told him that she didn't want to see him. She wrote, quote, you had a month's worth of chances to save your marriage, but what you wanted with her was more important. So James replied, quote, it absolutely wasn't worth it. I wasn't even emotionally attached. I just used her to build up my ego, end quote. Well, at least he got that right. But Angela described feeling paranoid, rightfully so, saying, I'm just doubting everything. I fear you're staying only to hide assets, that you've been having an affair, and you're just biding time to get through Christmas, end quote. James tried to quell her fears by saying he was no longer having an affair. He said, I'm not having an affair. I don't have a secret bank or Venmo accounts. I really do want you, and I want us, end quote. So when James tried to talk to her about mundane things like how her day was going, she wrote, quote, I'm not going to pretend everything's fine so you can feel better right now. We are not okay, end quote. And I get it. I get where Angela's coming from. James continued to apologize and assure her that he was trying to fix things. He wrote, quote, I hate that I lit our marriage on fire again and again. I feel shameful, not worth being around. He also talked about reading therapy books, praying, and being sad that Angela had moved out of their bedroom. In the messages, Angela was clearly heartbroken. She was clearly confused. She was clearly desperate. It was hard to read. She was desperate to understand whether their marriage could even be saved, honestly. You can tell her just searching and trying to figure out what was going on. James, on the other hand, seemed to say whatever he thought she wanted to hear. His words came across as self-serving, overly apologetic, almost rehearsed. To me, it didn't even sound genuine, my opinion. Even Angela admitted that she wished she could believe his apologies. And then things seemed to be a bit better going into the new year. On February 27th, James wrote, I love you so much. I'm happy you're my wife. And she replied, I haven't committed to wife. Maybe semi-consensual life partner, end quote. That was a good response, Angela. Detective Harris explained that Tony is Angela's sister and the sibling she was closest to. And while Angela was visiting Tony again for that genealogy conference, James texted her asking that she not share the details of their recent conversations. And that is heartbreaking to me. Even after 20 years, There were still things that he found difficult to talk about and didn't want his wife to share with one of her closest confidants. Angela responded that she had not mentioned anything to Tony about the past few months. And again, like, yeah, I wish she had. I wish she hadn't listened to James in that moment and confided in Tony. Next, the jury was shown Exhibit 176. It was an order slip from March 6, 2023 for 1 milligram of oleandrin. The invoice was addressed to James Craig. Exhibit 175 showed an email chain between James and the vendor. On March 8th, he wrote, quote, "Hi there. I placed an order 2 nights ago set for overnight delivery before 10 a.m. I haven't received tracking info and wanted to confirm it'll be there this morning." End quote. And so when it didn't arrive on time, the jury was shown emails from James showing his urgency and frustration about the package not yet arriving. He was not happy. Not happy at all. The package was not arriving in one day as expected and planned, which I'm sure he planned, right? Because he would be the only one in the office there on the weekend. It would have been really convenient if it arrived on time. Luckily, it didn't. But then cross-examination began with Lisa Moses asking Detective Harris about how the Major Crimes Unit is structured. Harris confirmed that yes, there are several detectives in the unit. One lead detective is assigned to each case, and in this one, it's Detective Olson, and then other detectives assist in various ways. Moses asked if part of Harris's role included conducting interviews, and Harris said yes. One of those interviews was with Ashley Donahue. Now, this was a witness yesterday, Ashley Donahue. Remember him? And this is where things got a little more interesting because honestly, I think the defense did a pretty solid job here poking holes in Ashley's credibility. Yesterday's witness. Harris confirmed that she interviewed Ashley on April 5th, 2023, after hearing he was claiming to have seen James at the Midland Scientific Warehouse. And during that interview, Ashley told her that he saw the individual, in quotes, meaning James Craig, on either March 13th or March 20th. But remember, just yesterday, again, Ashley testified that he wasn't totally sure it was sometime between March 13th and March 20th. So already we're seeing a bit of inconsistency. Then the defense shifted focus to a car Ashley claimed she saw James get into. And he had mentioned it was either a Nissan Sentra or a Nissan Maxima. But here's the thing. In his interview with Detective Harris, he specifically said he didn't see anyone get into the car. That's a pretty big contradiction. And it gets even more tangled. Harris said she was generally familiar with the vehicles at the Craig's home. There was a dark SUV, a Ford truck, a Jeep, and a white Subaru. No Nissan sedan that she could recall. Definitely nothing matching what Ashley described according to, her memory. And then there's the kicker. Ashley told Harris he recognized James Craig because of an office meeting they'd had, one that covered policies and procedures after everything came out about James. That's how he knew who he was. All this stuff had come out about James. But he never once mentioned recognizing James from a TV news report or anything like that. So all of a sudden, the story he gave on the stand starts to look pretty shaky, After that, Lisa Moses shifted gears and brought up the Google records. Detective Harris confirmed that she was the one who drafted several of the search warrants in this case, and she explained that those warrants have to be pretty specific. You can't just say, "Hey, give me 5 years of someone's Google history." It doesn't work like that, luckily. So when she submitted her initial request, she narrowed the time frame to mid-February through mid-March. That was the window investigators believed that was most relevant at the time. But she also clarified that if the new information comes to light, like something that suggests suspicious activity happening outside of that range, then she can go back and request additional records to widen the time frame. But essentially, what the defense's point was if you don't go back, you could be missing stuff. So it is not necessarily what's in there, it's what is not. And as part of those search warrants, Harris had requested Google history records. And once she got approval, she sent the warrant off to Google, and in return, they sent back the data in an HTML format. So Lisa Moses asked if you could take the HTML and convert it into a PDF. Harris said, sure. She supposed you could. That led Moses straight into Exhibit 70, which was exactly that. a PDF version of the Google text records. But Moses pointed out that the PDF wasn't a complete picture. She noted that several pieces of information were missing from the PDF that were included in the original HTML file. Things like email notifications, soft deleted flags, call thread IDs, call status, conversation IDs, and more. So basically what's happening is Moses was making the case that what was shown to the court was not the full story. There was a lot of additional context in the original data that didn't make it into the PDF the jury saw. Next, Moses turned to the photo media that was part of the Google messages. She pointed out that when photos are sent through text, they show up in the records as just a blank line labeled MMS or SMS. But here's the catch. You cannot actually see what the photo was. There's no image preview, no timestamp showing when the photo was taken, and no information about who took the photo. It could be a GIF or a GIF, depending on who you are. GIF, GIF, Apple, potato, a photo, or anything else. So again, her goal was to highlight another gap in the evidence. The data shows that something was sent, but not what it was or where it came from. And then Harris confirmed that as far as the Jim and Waffle Google account goes, it wasn't a brand new account. It was created in August of 2020, and then the billing was updated on February 27th, 2023. And then Lisa Moses moved on to the physical search warrant, specific alley, the searches of Craig's home, the dental office. Detective Harris confirmed she was present for both. She had officially joined the case on the morning of March 16th. And that day, actually, investigators first searched the house around 8:30 a.m. and then later searched the dental office at about 11:45. So at that point, James Craig wasn't yet a suspect. He was just considered a person of interest, and they were investigating. But first, let's talk about the search of the house. Let me grab a drink of water and we will get there. I see that there are over 3,000 people in chat. It's so good to see everyone. Please hit like and please share our hard work here because it means so much and is the greatest way you could support us. Let your friends know about the James Craig trial and how we are following along. So back to the search of the house, which began around 8:30 a.m. Initially, they showed up and began searching, but after they realized they needed an amended warrant, they stepped out of the house for about 45 minutes while they got the amendment done before continuing the search. After they were done with the house, they searched Summerbrook at 11:45 a.m. The defense was really hard pressed on why they searched the office that fast. And in their eyes, it wasn't like Angela had been there in quite a while, honestly. But while at the office, one of the things they took, again, was the hard drive from exam room 9, that infamous exam room 9. And at some point, Detective Olson contacted the forensic person for the Aurora Police Department and the Secret Service for help. But at that point, they felt they needed to look immediately and not wait. Again, they were worried about James's finances and him being able to flee while he was a person of interest. I mean, James knew he was a person of interest. After talking to his buddy Ryan Redfern, he knew. So Detective Harris and Detective Olson manually went through the computer from exam room 9. Detective Harris testified that when investigators powered on the computer, there was no login screen, just an immediate view of the Google account tied to Jim and Waffles. And at first it functioned like a phone in airplane mode. No internet, just whatever was stored locally. But once they connected it to Wi-Fi, they were able to access the browsing history using copied links. Every step of the process from startup to digging through the account was captured on body cam footage. Moses asked Harris if she ever got a search warrant for Angela's Google account, and Harris said no, they hadn't. Well, what about the computer she had in bed with her when James took that photo of her? Was that taken or searched? Harris responded that no, it wasn't. But questions about that would be better suited for Detective Olson, she said. Next, they went into Exhibit 46, which were texts between James and Angela. Harris testified that these gave a condensed look into Angela and James's relationship. Harris confirms that the texts start in December of 2022, but reference a history of infidelity on James's behalf, significant impact of his decisions to not be faithful to his wife, and the impact that it had on her, his wife of 23 years. The history of the impact on him, not being faithful in their relationship and marriage, as well as history of them getting through it and wanting to work through it. So in December of 2022, Angela found out that James was with someone besides her. So heartbreaking. At 1 a.m. on December 9th, she texted him saying, "I'm going to assume you made it to the cabin and there's no service." And within 11 hours, she writes him again saying, quote, "Don't come home. I don't want you here." End quote. Clearly, she knew. As they continue texting, she says there is nothing left for him to break. And he tells her that he used the woman to build up his own ego. Again, this is what we've already gone over, but that he loved Angela. The defense asked Harris if he ever denied it or said, "Fine, I'm done." And she said, no, he didn't. And talking about James's response to Angela, pushing him away, the defense brings up how James never said it's okay what he did or told Angela to go. He said he wanted to be better. He wanted to be with her and that he didn't want to lose her. I'm going to roll my eyes at the defense, honestly, during this moment. I'll tell you why soon. Over time, Angela started to soften and started to decide that she wanted to try and make it work. And on February 1st, James texted Angela, quote, "It takes broken soil to produce crop, broken cloud for rain, broken grain for bread," end quote. Again, eye roll for me. Harris confirms that in those texts, you see them trying to fix those broken pieces and move forward. And they explain that James never outwardly denied an affair, and Angela understandably didn't want to hear what he had to say at times. But James continued begging not to lose her. Yes, begging. That's important. Despite the betrayal, Angela eventually seemed to start softening and even told him that she didn't want him to leave. Detective Harris agreed when Attorney Moses said that this was not anything new and they were trying to rebuild yet again. Moses asked Harris if James was talking to anyone on the Seeking Arrangements website during this time. And again, Seeking Arrangements is a sugar daddy website. So it's not even your average cheating. It's like saying, hey, I'm going to go find myself a sugar baby that I'm going to pay a ton of money to. That is my family's money to just feed my ego. And at first, Harris said no, he wasn't on the Seeking Arrangement website during this time. But on redirect, the prosecution pressed further and asked her to take a look at a specific document. And after that, she clarified that James did appear to be texting with at least one person from the site during this time. Harris also said that whenever Angela got upset, James seemed to go into damage control, apologizing, backtracking, even saying he regretted ever mentioning a divorce. He was making it clear to Angie that he did not want a divorce, maybe because he wanted their relationship to end in a different way. Who knows? So I have something to say on a personal note about the situation. So stick with me here. So I'm just going to say something personal from me. This is a Lauren Matthias break. It's not about court. It's just about something I want to say. So what we're seeing in this case is not just about poison or search histories. It's about a pattern, a cycle that I personally have seen too many times, because this is what emotional abuse looks like. It starts off with love bombing, like affection, apologies, grand gestures, poems, texts about healing. The abuser makes the victim feel special, even cherished. That's the idealization phase, where you're placed on a pedestal so high, you start to forget the warning signs. And then comes the shift, the devaluing. The same person who once made you feel seen now makes you feel small. They become critical, distant, cold, and eventually there's the discard. It can be cheating, lying, emotional cruelty. And just when the victim tries to pull away, saying, you know what, I'm done, I want a divorce, it's over, here comes the hoovering, or a term that I use and many people use for when the abuser tries to suck the victim right back in. More love, more promises, more I'll change. And then the cycle starts all over again. And I see this in Angela Craig's story. I feel it in her texts and in James's texts to her. You see it in her confusion, in the way she was trying so hard to understand what was happening in her relationship and what she should do and who she should trust, and if she'd even should tell her sister Tony about it. And it absolutely breaks my heart. So if you're listening to this right now and this cycle feels familiar, please know it's not okay. You are not crazy. You are not alone. Talk to someone. Tell one safe person what's really going on. A relationship shouldn't be a merry-go-round. And I wish that Angela had felt brave enough to tell somebody. So that's my little rant. Rant over, soapbox over. We will keep going. Next up on the stand was a really big witness, a really important witness. It was Dr. Ryan Redfern. We've been waiting to hear from Dr. Ryan Redfern. Dr. Ryan Redfern is a dentist and owner of the company Fit to Smile. Ryan explained that he and his wife, Michelle, first met James and Angela back in dental school, and over time, they became friends. After graduation, they stayed loosely connected, mainly chatting now and then about business strategies. And eventually, Ryan and his brother-in-law started a dental service organization, or DSO, and were looking to bring in colleagues they trusted. James ended up joining Fit to Smile Partners in April of 2022. Ryan clarified that they didn't buy James's practice. They just provided management support to help him run it more smoothly. Ryan testified that he knew James had filed for bankruptcy in the past. Within the DSO, all of the practices shared a joint bank account. Money flowed in and out to cover operating costs, and in James's case, to help pay down his debts. At one point, James's bankruptcy payments were around $18,000 a month. Yikes, I cannot imagine. But by the end of 2022, the arrangement wasn't working. Ryan said financial pressure was building. While James had some decent months in the first year overall, the practice was losing money more often than not. And that was becoming a problem, clearly. A big problem for Ryan and the other partners. Things got serious enough that the partners held a meeting without James to talk about whether he should remain in the group. And that same night, Ryan drove to James's house at 9 o'clock on a Monday to deliver the message in person. It was that urgent. He told James what needed to change if he wanted to stay on. He'd have to take a pay cut from 35% down to 25%, cancel some upcoming trips to Europe, and start working at least 180 days a year, just like the other partners. Surprisingly, James took it better than Ryan expected, but then things shifted, and James opened up about serious marital problems, and he said that he and Angie were not in a good place and even broke down crying. Again, guys, I'm going to throw this out there. This is emotional abuse, even to his buddy Ryan. It's manipulative. Ryan testified that he heard, and then we get into Angela being sick in this testimony, which is really important. Ryan testified that he first heard that Angela was sick from Jackie Calderon because James had to leave work to take her to the hospital. He also knew that James and Michelle had been talking about Angela's condition behind the scenes. And then on March 15th, the day leading up to Angela's death, Michelle told him that Angela had crashed. And as friends, they wanted to be supportive. So they offered to go to the hospital, Ryan and Michelle, husband and wife. And on the way there, they got a three-way call from Jackie and Caitlin that we've heard about, Caitlin Romero. And what they heard on that call changed everything. He learned that a package had arrived at James's office earlier that week on Monday, and it contained, what did it contain? We know, potassium cyanide. And Ryan knew that was poison, but didn't know why in the world his buddy James would ever have it. When Ryan got to the hospital, he went straight to the ER and was then directed up to the ICU. And that is where he met up with James. And soon after, Michelle joined them. And so at one point, James stepped away to take a phone call, and Ryan quietly pulled a nurse aside at that moment and told the nurse about the cyanide. He knew time was critical. And if there was even a chance to save Angela, he had to speak up. He ended up speaking with the forensic nurse for about 35 minutes, going over everything he knew. And before leaving, he told Angela's brother Mark and their bishop why he and Michelle were heading out. He thought it was important that they knew. So then as Ryan and Michelle got into the car to leave the hospital, Ryan's phone rang. It was James. He put the call on speaker. James said that he heard some disturbing news that Ryan had spoken to somebody at the hospital. And Ryan didn't waste any time. He didn't deny that he had done this. He actually started asking questions about the package, the infamous package. James brushed it off, saying it was just a surprise ring he had ordered for Angela. But Ryan was not buying it. He pushed back. He told James he knew what was in the package. It had been opened. It wasn't a ring. It was potassium cyanide. Ryan asked him directly, why would you need something like that? And James's response, Ryan, what have you done? Ryan repeated the question, "Why do you need cyanide?" He added, "We don't use that in dentistry." And that's when James gave a chilling explanation. He claimed he ordered it as a kind of game of chicken with Angela, said she was suicidal and that he bought it for her because she couldn't get it herself. This is such a bizarre story. And the defense is going with it, by the way. The next morning, Ryan got a long text message from James. He begged him, not just Ryan, but others too, not to talk to police, not to tell anyone what they talked about. Next, the state asked if oleander cyanide or arsenic were ever used in dentistry. And Ryan was like, no, not used in dentistry. James told the companies he ordered the poisons from that. So he told the companies that he used the poisons to perform cranial surgeries and was using these substances for research. That's what he emailed Cassie, who's already testified. But Ryan said that was a lie. He didn't know about any of the research James claimed to be working on. So now we get to cross-examination. On cross, Ryan confirmed that he and James were just a year apart in school. And back when they all lived in Kansas City, the two couples were close. They spent a lot of time together, dinners, hangouts, and Angela even watched Ryan's kids. But that closeness started to fade in June of 2025 when Ryan moved to Colorado. James stayed behind to finish school, and though he eventually moved to Colorado too, things were not the same. Their friendship became more distant. They still talked occasionally, usually about business, and would sometimes try to meet for lunch. But with both men raising small children and living in different parts of the Denver metro area, James in Aurora, Ryan in Centennial, their lives just didn't intersect the way they used to. Ryan described it plainly. Michelle was closer to Angie than I was to James. And honestly, in my opinion, it was a quiet but telling detail. Even longtime friends didn't necessarily know what was happening behind closed doors. So fast forward a bunch of years, and Ryan and his brother Trent were in business together trying to expand things. And when they reached out, they were unaware of James's previous files of bankruptcy or his major financial struggles, which he later told them was a result of COVID and the pandemic. Ryan thought James could be an asset to his company. After all, James knew a lot of people and was a speaker for a really big national impact company that had him traveling both nationally and internationally. In short terms, he brought credibility to Ryan's company, or so he thought. Ryan clarified on the stand, however, that he never bought James's company. Rather, they just worked out a management detail. He said he's seen things on the news and that there are a lot of things in the news that are incorrect, according to Ryan. So he wanted to make that clear. But when he joined up with James, it wasn't just the $18,000 issue that was at play. There were actually a lot of other expenses. Moses then brought up Ryan's 2023 interview with police that took place around 12:30 a.m. on the 16th. And during that interview, Ryan said something along the lines of, quote, he was working hard to try and become a better partner and try to get on board with the way he needs to get on board. And I would give him credit, Ryan continued. He probably crossed that threshold in January. It took from April to January, end quote. Ryan recalled a meeting he had with James in January of 2023, where he went to James's house and listed out the things that needed to change. And then the prosecution jumped to the team from the dental office because that was one of the things that Ryan said needed to change. First off, Angela was the office manager. So Angela Craig was the office manager. And when Moses asked if it wasn't going well, Ryan said, quote, we didn't know how bad the business was doing. We are kind of opposed to having a wife run the show, and she was okay with leaving, and James was also okay with it too. Ryan explained that the wives should be the morale boosters. They shouldn't be doing the hiring, firing, or disciplining, according to Ryan. Then Moses went back to that meeting that took place in January 2023 as the business continued to flounder. And during that meeting, he told James he would need to cut some of his expenses. He would need a salary cut, and that he was concerned with the amount of upcoming travel that James had planned, which would make him unable to show up at the office. James agreed to all of those things and was more positive than Ryan expected and was on board and willing to do what needed to be done. After they had that rough professional conversation, they shifted more into that personal conversation. James told Ryan about his marriage that was struggling. He said it was in a bad place. And while Ryan didn't pry, elaborate, or ask questions, James actually cried about it. Next, Moses wanted to talk about the night of March 15th. Ryan testified that before he got to the ICU, he saw James, who was crying, emotional, and having a hard time breathing. More specifically, Ryan used the term bawling. Ryan testified that he could feel the emotion James had. And when they went to the ICU waiting room, the emotions lessened, but they heightened again after James spoke to the doctor in the ICU. Even though Ryan was watching James closely after what he had been told, he still thought that James's emotions seemed appropriate given what was happening. At some point that night, James was upset again, but this time it was because the hospital would not let the kids come in to see Angie. Ryan testified that he felt that anger again was justified by James. On redirect, the state focused on more clarifying questions. In his interview, Ryan had said James had crossed the threshold. The state wanted to know what that meant, and Ryan told them it was the second month they had made any profit on Summerbrook Dental. When asked about the changes that needed to be made at Summerbrook, Ryan said that a lot of employee changes needed to happen. Angie was just the first one, and that there was more spending than there was money coming in. But Ryan said that Angie's departure was amicable. He also said that he did not blame Angie at all for the state of the business. Finally, the defense just had two more things they wanted to ask. Who hired Caitlin Romero? And Ryan said, quote, "We did." And lastly, they shifted to Angie's mental health. Ryan testified that on the night James confided in him about his marriage, he never said anything about Angie wanting to end her own life. Nor did he ever share anything about that, ever. And then came jury questions. The jury is allowed to ask questions in this trial. They didn't have any until the very end of the day. So finally, and in my opinion, it's one of the most fascinating moments in any trial, the jury questions. One juror wanted to know whether there was an actual contract for James Craig to join Fit to Smile Dental back in April of 2022, and Ryan confirmed yes, there was. And the salary that had been negotiated and decided on by the practice's partners. Another juror had questions about James's travel schedule, just how often was he around the office? And Ryan said that generally, yes, they were aware of his speaking engagements and travel plans. In fact, based on his early 2023 schedule, James would have only been physically in the office, get this, maybe 10 to 12 days out of 60. Ryan didn't sugarcoat it. That wouldn't be good for business. It was a subtle but pointed insight into just how checked out James Craig may have already been, both at work and possibly in other parts of his life, honestly. And that was the end of the day. That was it. And we all then took time walking out into a giant rainstorm. A downpour. I had to curl my hair again for this, just the front at least. The back is like a wet dog, but hey, we're here. And we went home. So that ends the week. I mean, what an eventful week, though. I mean, I can't believe how many witnesses they got through in just week one of the James Craig trial. We're going to go over a few of your questions and some super chats. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I see over 4,000 people in chat. Let me just grab a sip of water. And thank you, everyone. Susie, thank you so much. It is something. I mean, so much. Spring, thank you so much for the Hidden True Crime memberships. I love those that give memberships. People always ask, how can I get a gifted membership? And just make sure your membership is gifting is turned on your YouTube profile, and you can be gifted a membership. Oh, that's hilarious. Colleen is asking, Lauren, could you look like a mess just once, please? I'm in ripped sweats. Well, I'm in sweats and slippers. And like I said, the back of my hair is a mess. Trust me, this is called a mirage. Just little curls right here. You have no idea what the back looks like. No idea. Doral, thank you so much for the super sticker. Leslie, thank you for gifting a chat. Colleen, happy birthday. It was my half birthday yesterday. But thank you. I kind of joke about my half birthday. It's not a real thing I celebrate. I just use it as an excuse to celebrate or do something fun or go out. So I hope nobody really thought that I really celebrate my half birthday. I mean, hey, life is short. Maybe we should. Celebrate your half birthday, everyone. That's me telling you. Enjoy the moment, enjoy the days. But thank you, Colleen. Rose, thank you for your generosity so much. Wow, so many have been generous today. Look, I really appreciate it. It's not inexpensive to cover these trials, and it means so much that it matters to all of you. So thank you. Cassandra, thank you so much. TS is asking, do I go home for the weekend or just stay here? The drawings are awesome and your narrative, absolutely stunning. Thank you. Thank you so much. Going home. In fact, I can't wait to go home. We were going to try to go home tonight. I am so anxious to get home. It wasn't my birthday, but it was Dr. John's. And we also happened to get married on his birthday. So I actually have missed both Dr. John's and birthday and our anniversary. I think I shared a video of our elopement on that day. It was my first day here. So I am so excited to get back to John and my family. So we will be leaving early tomorrow morning to see them. I cannot wait. A great question. Outside of the courtroom, the evidence seems pretty condemning. Does it still seem as potent in the courtroom with all the objections? Yeah, I would say it feels pretty condemning, the evidence. I will also say that with all of the objections and the white noise and the sidebar and the voir dires, there's probably reasons that jurors are dozing off on occasion. But I also see them paying attention, taking notes, and taking in what's important. And I mean, this defense is a really bizarre one, that she was playing a game of chicken and maybe wanting to self-harm, and he bought it for her so she could, it's, maybe do better in divorce proceedings. I don't think it's gonna work. I think the jury sees through this, but there's always a but. I will say I have never been great at predicting a jury's reaction. I want to say that. Every time I say, oh, this one's going to take a while, they come back fast. Like Murdoch, I was like, oh, that's going to take a really long time. It came back so fast. And then the Robert Tellis trial is like, they're going to come back in 5 minutes, and they took like 3 days. And someone thought Robert Tellis was innocent. So I don't know, but they are paying attention. But I will say that, yes, it is not as potent in the courtroom, again, with all of the white noise and everything. Let's see. Did the defendant do much reacting today? You know what's interesting? I feel like he is doing less reacting. So he started the first days like really kind of reacting, nodding his head, shaking his head, showing emotion. Granted, I can only see the back of his head now. He's turning less now. Like we don't see his face as much. In fact, I couldn't even get the color of his tie today. Which is unusual. This is the first day I haven't been able to get the color of his tie. So it's less reacting, oddly. I don't know what that's about. Rita, thank you so much. Happy birthday, Dr. John. Thank you, Ms. Angry Seth. I hope you're not that angry, but I'm definitely not angry after getting your super chat. Thank you. What do I think about the jury? Are they engaged? Yeah, I'd say they are engaged. I've talked to my producer, Grayson, about it. Wouldn't you say they're engaged? Yeah, they're very. She just said very. They're paying attention. They're listening. And again, one dozing off because we had more white noise than testimony, I don't think is absurd. Yeah. We were all there, right? Like, how to make someone fall asleep, turn on white noise. And on a Friday afternoon when we've been sitting there for hours. They are engaged. They're taking notes. Like I said, some jurors have cried. They cried yesterday during Miriam's testimony. Not all of the kids come. Typically the Craig children that come are the 3 oldest. And we have very clear court orders, by the way, to never mention the names of the minor children, which are the 3 youngest. In fact, I do want to make that clear because when 2 of the children testified yesterday, they're adults. The Craig children, who are adults, they're not children, they're adults. I mentioned their names, and many people had concerns because they had heard that we're not supposed to mention the children's names. So the court order, we read it again carefully, is the minor children. So there are 3 minor children whose names we're not supposed to mention, and we never will. And those children are usually not in the courtroom. Dardine, that's 2 copies. You just received 2 copies of my book, Escaping Emotional Abuse. Thank you. Clearly, this is why I'm passionate about emotional abuse. And for those that watch my Mormon Stories interview or are going to watch it, I talk about this book. So I'm flattered that you ordered it. This is actually a book I wrote in 2019, but never really spent too much time promoting it because if someone needs it, pass it along. So thank you. How long do I expect the Kate state to last? I suspect all next week. They were going through witnesses fast. And so I was thinking for a while, so I'll just say this, the trial is scheduled for 3 weeks and we just concluded week 1. And so there was a part of me that was wondering if it was going to finish faster than 3 weeks because they were going through witnesses pretty quickly. They're zooming through them. But I do think they're going to have enough witnesses for next week and that the defense will probably want a week too. So I think that it is likely going to be a 3-week trial, 2.5 weeks maybe, but I think at least. In fact, I'll be honest, I was arguing about this with my producer today. I said, I think it's going to be shorter than 3 weeks. And she was like, no, 3 weeks. Absolutely. So we'll see. Carol, 2 of the adult children testified yesterday. Very heartbreaking, both Miriam and Annabelle. And if their son Tolliver testifies, that's to be determined. And I will be curious to also know if he's called by the defense or something. But right now, I don't think so. Right now, I think that that's all we're going to hear from. But we'll see. We'll see. All right. Thank you, everyone, so much. So kind today. It's so good to see everybody. I will address it. I will address it one more time. My cough. I want you guys to know, I'll tell you what I've done. I've gone to the doctor. I've gotten a referral. I've done a Z-Pack. I've done steroids. I have an inhaler. I did a steroid inhaler. I've done a lot of things. I'm not just sitting by because trust me, this is my career. This is what I do every day. I hang out with you guys. I do not want to cough. It's embarrassing. It's frustrating. It's maddening. It's mortifying. And I'm so sorry. And trust me, it's putting a major damper on my life. Thank you, everyone, for the advice you sent out. There's actually been really helpful advice, things I didn't know about. Thank you, Teddy. I'm laughing because I know Teddy. Teddy and I met in Delphi, Indiana. All right. So, but I just want to thank you guys. I am trying. Thank you for your advice. I've had physicians reaching out. You guys are awesome and you're patient. And the people that are like, stop apologizing. I'm like, I know, but it's like so frustrating when you're me and it's happening when I just want to be able to share what's going on. So I won't apologize anymore, but I will say thank you for understanding. And I am doing my best to solve it. I'm trying. Thank you, Pat. That is so kind. Thank you, Pat. Let's hope I get back to being able to just do what I do best and share information without coughing. But until then, and I'd also like to give a shout out to Nancy Joe. And when I say Nancy Joe, I mean the Nancy Joe. Nancy Joe Hancock. Don't flatter yourself. Actually, you need to flatter yourself, Nancy Joe, for this. She's told me to stop using so much plastic. I'm taking lessons from you, and I am drinking out of these pretty hotel glasses. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. Please let everybody know that we're doing this because I just think this trial is so important for those that don't know about this case because the family understandably has been private. Understandably, there isn't a lot of information. We have done an entire backstory so you can get caught up and understand what is going on, and then we will be back doing recaps on Monday. Thank you. Hell yes, Nancy Joe. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night, and may justice be served.